Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and my craft table. If you're new, my name is Jen and I'm really glad that you're all here with me today. In today's video, I wanted to share with you this fun little die set that Spellbinders sent over to me to play with and create. This is just super fun. This die set right here is actually a stitching die. So it has some elements in here where you can use some thread and a needle to provide some stitching elements for your card or whatever project that you're using this for. However, I made one already. This is something a little bit different than we're going to do this evening. But this one, I did not do any stitching. Okay, so all of these little holes, and you can see all those embossed lines right there. That's where you would stitch away with your thread. So I didn't do any stitching on this version. I just made a card to try it out and have a lot of fun with. And then I found a stamp set in my stash. So I just created the front that says you, and on the inside, it says, "Are a stellar human." I thought this would be super fun to be able to send to somebody who just needs to know how wonderful they are, or even someone who just needs a pick-me-up. So let's go ahead and dive into today's project. Let me show you the materials. So the first thing is I have the stitching die of the month. So Spellbinders actually has like a ton of different monthly clubs that you can subscribe to. And really, they just kind of have anything you could possibly want. So this one in particular is the stitching die. This is called Forever Fabulous, and it's for November 2025. And this right here is like the suggested outline of what you would use and how you would put it together. And then I just came up with my own. So we're going to be using this stitching die. Also, my friend Rachel from Daily Creations, she sent over this stamp set a little while back, and it's just super cute. It is from Pretty Pink Posh. She sent the stamps and the die set, and this is called Simple Thanks. And I thought it would just be fun to use this as the sentiment and maybe something on the inside as well. So we have that. I also have some VersaFine Clair for the stamp. I'm going to be using Barely Art glue to put this together. I think for this version, I will be doing some stitching. So I have some Diamant thread from DMC. It is this beautiful shimmery white thread. And then I have my little embroidery needle. I believe it is size 22. And then I have my paper. So I have 110-pound cardstock for my base. And this one I actually already had trimmed and scored. So I'm going to go ahead and use that this evening. I have some pattern paper for the background panels. And then this is my inspiration. So this is actually Concord in 9th. And this is one of their color combos. And a while back, I just printed these out and then I laminated them. So we're going to be using Pink Lemonade, Honeysuckle, Clementine, Sea Glass, and then instead of Juniper, I actually am going to be using Peacock. So I didn't have a little scrap of Juniper, and I really didn't want to cut into my big piece of paper. So I just thought, well, I'll just use this because it was handy and it looks great with all of these. I also have for the little puppy, I have the white and black. So this is for the eyes and the nose. And then I have this for the little puppy. Isn't that cute? So I just think it's going to be super great. I'm going to move all of these items out of the way. I'm going to use this pink here for this large outline of the bag. This outline with the stitching die portion will be for the front panel. I also am going to be using this pink here for the ears, so that will work out great. For this inset, I thought that the orange would be super fun, and then I'm also going to use it for the elements of the purse. So we've got kind of a little orange accent. As far as the shirt is concerned, I am going to be using the sea glass for the shirt base. And then for the overlays, I'm going to be using the peacock, white for the eyes. And I will also be using that on this part of the nose piece. And then I will be using the top side of the nose and the eyes in black. My little dog here. So this will be everything for our little dog. And then I have this here. So this is going to be for our muzzle and then also for our purse element. So I think this is going to work out really good. I'm going to go ahead and die cut all of these. I am going to be using just my small little scout right here. And I've got them all ready, sized to go. And I'm going to be just die cutting on here. Y'all, I have to tell you, I just got new plates and these are so clean and so pretty. My other ones, let me just show you. Check that out. That is so well loved. And quite frankly, I could probably still get a lot more use out of this. And then this was my top plate. So I actually might turn this into my bottom plate and use one of these for the top plate. And I'll save this one. But this one, I might retire. I might hold on to it. I'm not sure. All right, so I am going to go ahead and get all of these items die cut. Now, when I die cut things, I like to get as much as I can onto my little die cutting plate here. And that way I can have the least amount of passes possible. Okay, so all of the die cutting is done, and now we're going to go ahead and on this version, we're going to do the stitching. And I'll be speeding that up on camera for you so you don't have to sit here and watch me stitch it. But essentially, I'm going to follow these debossing lines. Okay, let me see if you can, and I'm going to go in one direction and then I'm going to come back in another direction, almost kind of like cross stitch in a way. And this little white thread here, I've got ready to go. So basically I just start, you can really just kind of start wherever you want, to be honest. And what I like about the stitching dies is if you're someone who doesn't sew, it's totally fine. You don't have to know how to sew to do the stitching. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up through there. Just like that. And I'm going to go down. Okay. And then I will come up and go down into that one. Okay. So kind of like that. And then when I'm all done with this stitching piece, then we will go ahead and put the rest of the card together. Okay, so I am all done with the stitching and this is how it turned out and it looks really, really good. I love that. Now, full disclosure, this is the second time I cut it out and then restitched it because the first one earlier, I was using, the thread was doubled. And it was fine all the way until I started coming back. And then it was just way too thick and I couldn't get it through the holes. So this thread here is just one string and I went one way and then I came back another way and it just looks so good. I am so pleased with that. So this is going to just paper. It's going to go into the trash. All right, so next, we're going to do a little bit of gluing stuff together. So let's go ahead and actually let's do our dog first. So here is our neck, here is our face, here is our ears. They're going to go that way. And then I have these and this. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and get the muzzle on. Now, when you use a Spellbinders die, a lot of times they have, just like these stitch lines were debossed into the paper, a lot of their dies are the same way. In fact, when I hold this up, see how you can see where the nose is going to go? That's where the nose is going to go. It has these debossed lines. Okay. And then we'll have tiny little piece of glue there. Okay, just like that. And then for my ears, now I gotta make sure these going the right way. Okay, so this one is gonna go down over here. So just like that. I probably put a little too much glue on there. I am notorious for that. And then we're gonna get this ear on. And I just gotta find where that is. Okay. All right. So those are my little ears. Okay. And then we'll have one ear back here and the other ear on this side. Okay, that looks good so far. Now let's go ahead and work on the rest of the face. Okay, so these white deals here, these are going to go behind our dog. I'm going to get this little wand right here. And I'm going to put the black piece on top. I'm thinking this will be a little bit easier. And then I'll put this behind. But that way my eyes are going in the correct direction. There we go. And then same thing with our nose. Now this nose has a little bitty hole that needs to come out. And on this white piece here, we're just going to stick that on there. It doesn't even have a, it doesn't have like a debossed area. Okay, then I just have to decide how I want my eyes. So I'm thinking this time I want my eyes to be a little bit down this way. So I'm going to put my glue up here, and then we're going to stick that right on there, like so. Turn that way. And I'm just going to place that right on there. Okay, that's good. I think they look relatively even. They're not perfect, but relatively even. And then we're going to stick this little nose. We'll go on here like this. Okay, so that looks really good. And I'm just going to let this hang out and dry. In fact, I'm just going to stick that on top of there. And I'm just going to stick the magnet on top just to give it some weight. Now these get put together, and I think I am going to do a little offset like I did last time, but this time I'm going to make it where it comes out on the other side. Okay, I just think these are super fun. All right, now this, I'm gonna need to hold this down with my reverse tweezers. In fact, let me grab my other set because I'm probably gonna have to put more glue behind there. We'll see how that goes for just a minute. All right, we have this here. This is our purse handle. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put down the glue here and here. Whoa! And then we've got 1 and 2. Got a little bit of glue on that glass mat there. And then we're going to put our orange handle here, kind of in this middle area. Just like this. Okay. And there is a slight debossing line where I stuck that. Okay, so here's my purse handle. Here is the back of my purse. Let's look at our shirt. This comes together just oh so easily. So we're just going to get our glue onto here. I thought this was a really nice contrast. So the peacock with the sea glass. And we'll put a thing of glue here, and here, and here, and here. Okay, so this is that bottom piece. This is going to be this middle piece. We've got this side over here. And this side over here. That looks really good. That's super cute. Okay, so it looks like this, and you can see the lines of the shirt. I love that. That's so cute. All right, and I'm going to put that under my little magnet there. All of this is good. Now let's take a look at what's going on over here. I think what I'm going to need to do is go right through here, put some more glue, and let that sit with my reverse tweezers there. Reverse tweezers there. And I'm probably going to have to do this. Actually, I just had a thought. Let's do all of it. And I'm going to stick it under this ceramic thing that I have right here. So let me get this all glued up. And I'm going to stick it under there and just let it sit. And then we can work on our little dog here. Okay. And then I'll just stick that right on there. And we'll let that hang out for a minute. And we have this here, and we'll use that in a second when we put everything together. So let me do a super quick cleanup, and then we'll move on to the next phase. Okay, I'm going to bring in my paper trimmer, and what I want to do is I want to trim down this paper. And I think, let's see, my card is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 wide by 5 1/2 tall. So I think I'm going to do 4 wide by 5 1/4. Okay, and then that will go on here nicely, and then you can see it has like a little edge. Then this one here, how about we do 3 5/8? Instead of 5 1/4, we'll do 4 7/8. And then that should give us a nice margin around. And again, it's just kind of peeking out from under there. So nice and fun. And I thought that this matched those little colors that I'm using. So I want to get some glue here on the back. And then I'm going to get this as centered as I possibly can. And these lines are actually quite helpful. Okay, so that is my little panel there. Let's check our purse and see if we like that. I think that this is going to need a little more time So I think what I'm gonna do is take a little break, and I'm gonna go get some coffee, and then I will be able to resume in just a little bit. So I have let this sit for a good while. In fact, it's the next morning. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this out from underneath my marble coaster here. Sometimes I keep that on hand here in my craft room, and it's not only good for drinks, but it also is extremely heavy. So I can use it like a weight to get these to be nice and flattened out, as well as helping the glue to set. I'm going to get some of my double-sided adhesive tape. Now this is just the double-sided adhesive tape. It doesn't have any loft to it, not at all. And I'm gonna place that here on the back. And what I like about this is that where I can just go like this, tear it, place it, and then I can peel up these release paper like that. Okay, and then, whoa, I'm gonna get this kind of way down here like I had earlier. So just like this. You need to know like how far up or down that I'm going to need to place my sentiment. And I'm thinking that I'm going to use this thanks out of here. I want to put this little guy as close to the top as I can so that I can have my thanks down here. And I like the idea of it being right justified. So like right down there. So that means my little guy has to be up pretty darn high because this needs room. Okay. So I think I'm going to have him pretty close to the top. I guess it could be a her also. Okay, so I'm going to put this down here. Needs plenty of space. I don't want this to move on me. I'm going to hover where I need it to go, and I'm just going to pull that out from underneath, and I'm just going to set that down, right? Like that. And I think that is going to be just fine. So this will go here. Let me get this on there. Okay. And then we're going to set this off to the side. Okay, let's get this one lined up. Just so. Now, if you ever do a stitch die and you find yourself to where maybe the stitching layer and the other layer don't necessarily want to stick together, you can use something called red line tape, and you can put that on the smooth layer and then put liquid glue on top and then put your stitched layer. And that way, when you set it underneath the heavyweight, that it has a little more stuff to adhere things together. You've got a permanent and you've got a liquid. Now I'm going to go ahead and move this over to the side. I am going to go ahead and just put that little weight on top. Okay, so let me grab my little mini Misty. You could also use an acrylic block. I actually have a couple sitting out here, but I do really prefer this. I just find that because a lot of times I like to stamp the image more than once, that I like the flexibility that the Misty offers. All right, let's put this right here. And this is just a scrap piece of cardstock. It's about 80 pounds. And a lot of times I will save these kind of trimmings, and I have kind of like a little stack of them, and they're great for sentiments. So now I'm just going to go over the stamp with my finger, get off that coating. And then my favorite ink for sentiments is this VersaFine Clair Nocturne pigment ink. I just find that it gives a really good, crisp sentiment. Okay, and sometimes I don't even have to stamp it twice. Okay, that looks actually really, really good. So I'm going to let that be. And I'm going to grab a little baby wipe so that I can clean off this stamp right here. Okay. So with the pigment ink, we want to get it cleaned up relatively quickly. I'm going to let that just sit over there to dry. And then I'm going to let this dry for a few minutes before I run it through my die cutting machine. Then let's talk about the inside of the card. I have this one here. This is just a little, it's called Lot to Say stamp set. It's by Concord and Ninth. And these are just some small little sentiments. And I think what I'm going to do is put this upside down. The card is going to be upside down, so it's going to open. I like to have my MISTI open like a book. So that means that my sentiment needs to be on this side of my card. Okay, hold that down. Okay, I think that is straight. And then I'm going to check these line up with those lines. Nice and neat. Press that down and open the door. Make sure this is firmly in that corner. And this stamp has been used before, so I don't need to condition that. I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that up. And then we can see if we need another pass. And I've learned that on your sentiments, you don't want to put a lot of really hard pressure because your letters can kind of splay out and look a little bit warped. Okay, so see, that is beautiful. This is why I really like this for my sentiments. And then I can just use that same baby wipe to clean this off. And then I can put that in the corner. Let that dry. All right, so this is our card here. I'm going to let this kind of sit for a minute. I want to make sure that that is nice and dry. In a minute, we're going to die cut that. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and get this put on to the card. And I like to leave the edge of that handle. I like to leave that free because then it gives it a little bit of dimension. Okay, a little bit of glue. And then we're going to put that there and that over there. And we're just going to hold that for a moment. Okay, so that's perfect. And that looks so cute. So fun. Such a fun card. Now I do need to die cut this sentiment. I'm going to get this lined up. And then I am going to use a piece of washi tape. I don't want this die to move because I need it to be in a very, very, very specific spot. You could also cut out a sentiment with your Cricut. Okay, and then there is our sentiment. How sweet is that? So this is the kind of the remnants of my foam panels that I make when I am doing cards. I pop everything up on like a foam panel. It's double-sided adhesive tape on both sides of a piece of craft foam. And I just get the craft foam off of Amazon. And I got the idea originally from Carissa Wiley, and she is an amazing card maker if you've never seen her. She's fantastic. Next, I'm going to grab my tweezers. I'm going to put just the tiniest bit of glue, not very much. And then we want to place this right here. Oh, that's the perfect. In fact, let me do that so that this doesn't move on me. The liquid glue will give me time if I needed to rearrange this. And then of course the foam tape is the permanent part, but the liquid glue allows me to have some float time. All right, so this is our little panel. Now let's get our card put together. All right, so on the back of all of my cards, I like to take these stickers that I make using my Cricut and put it right here in the middle. And then I do have some sort of something or other back here. There is the back side of our card. Here is the front side of our card. And next we're going to get this on the top. So what I like to do for these is I have this panel here. This is my double-sided adhesive foam. And I am going to cut down the sides because my card is actually not as wide as the base. And this will go on my panel. Okay, so here is one. We're going to get this down on our mat here so that it doesn't move, and then pull off this release paper here. Make sure we have our dog. Get that as straight as possible and in the middle. So then here is our finished card. It looks so cute. I am really loving that. These are they're so different from each other, and yet they're similar. And they came out so good. I am super excited. I really am having a hard time deciding which one is my favorite. Let me know down in the comments which one is your favorite. So you can vote for the teal version that has no stitching, or the pink version that does have stitching. I'd love to know your opinion, and I'd love to know which one is your favorite. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber to the channel. I'd love to have you. And I will also be putting in the description a link to all of the supplies and materials that I used today, as well as a link to the Spellbinders page where you can check out all of the monthly club subscriptions they have available. They truly have something for everyone. There's a variety of different clubs. So if you're not into stitching dies, they have so many others that you could take a look at, and they really are super amazing and fun. And of course, I just love their products. So anyway, thanks again for spending your time with me today. I really do appreciate having you here. And until I see you in the next card or craft video, as always, have an amazing day and happy crafting.
Thank you all so much for watching today. I'm so glad that you can join me at my craft table. If you're not already, I'd love to have you as a subscriber, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. That way you'll know when new videos arrive. Have a great day, and as always, happy crafting.